Hey guys, Patrick Wind here, and if you want to learn how to set up your hot, warm and cold retargeting structure within your CBO campaigns in order to boost your own Facebook and Instagram ads, then stay tuned. When it comes to structuring your CBO campaigns for retargeting, then you once again have to have in mind the full funnel retargeting audiences, okay? So basically structuring to hot, warm and cold retargeting audiences is still a good idea even though in a CBO environment, okay? What does it mean? Well, basically it means that people who have just engaged with your page or your website or your profile within a very short time frame, so very hot audiences, so people who added to the shopping cart today and have not purchased, or people who have engaged with your Facebook, Instagram profile today, a couple of hours ago. These are very hot leads. These are very hot data points, which you can see on the left column. For example, on engagers 1 day, page view 1 day, people who viewed a specific content but haven't purchased in the last 3 days, people who have added to the shopping cart in the last 7 days. For these people, you want to communicate a different message than to cold retargeting audiences, like for example, people who have just engaged with your Facebook, Instagram profile a month ago, but have not engaged in any other way with you, or people who visited your website 6 months ago, so 180 days, or viewed content or added to the shopping cart and haven't purchased in the last 6 months. So this is the basic idea. When structuring your CBO campaigns for retargeting, once again, you should structure the different ad sets according to hot, warm and cold. However, what changes is that you now combine all of them in one bigger CBO campaign, and of course you can work with different minimum and maximum as ad spend limits in order to make sure that your hot audiences will get enough exposure. But all of this I'm going to show you now in practice. The only thing that I wanted to mention on top of that is that you should never forget about a proper upsell campaign. So for example, here we say 180 days, people who have purchased in the last 6 months, you want to re-impact them with a specific messaging. And on top of all of that, in this specific video today, I'm also going to show you how to set up very cold or hyper low intent audiences, which is also a good idea when you have sufficient traffic. So let me walk you through my actual ad account and show you how to set up all of these things properly. So first of all, we have to go to the asset library. We have to go to audiences, okay, and set up all of these audiences. Of course, the time ranges, like be it 1 day, 3 days, 14 days, 30 days, all of this is very subjective and relative and depends a lot on your traffic. So if you have a lot of traffic on your website, then all of these time frames can be very short. Like that's already a very short setup. So this should be very cool if you have a lot of traffic on your site. If you don't have a lot of traffic, then please just double or even triple these days. So if you have very few traffic, if you're just beginning with your business, or you simply have a business that doesn't require a lot of traffic on your website, then you can even multiply by 3 all of these terms, or at least by 2, okay? So instead of 7, 14 or even 21, instead of 3, 6 or even 9, instead of 1, 2 or even 3, okay? In order to make sure that you have enough data points in each of these specific audiences, okay? And now you basically can set them up easily. So for example, if you set up whatever, like the events based on the pixel, like you see like add to cart in the last 180 days or add to cart in the last 7 days, I do not recommend to work with exclusions already here on audience level. I rather like to exclude them on ad set level. And for example, if you create a custom audience of people who have engaged with the Instagram business profile, let's say you would not take everyone, you would take people who have engaged with any post or ad, let's say today. Just have also created Instagram engaged 1, so people who have engaged exactly today with my Instagram profile, but of course not with all the profile, but just with the specific posts or ads. You can of course do the same with my Facebook page. So you wouldn't take all of them, you would take here, this one, you would take people who have engaged with any post or ad, okay? Yeah, let's create just this one for 1 day, Facebook engaged 1. Nice. So that's the way we can easily set up all of these things. And on top of that, I also wanted to create another audience with you, which is a pretty cool one, which is people who so visitors by time spent. Okay, this of course just a test account here, but visitors by time spent is very interesting when it comes to these super cold, low intent audiences that I also like to impact. So besides hot, warm and cold, I go even one step higher, I go even one step further, and I take people, all kind of people who visited my website, but I prefer to focus only on the ones who've spent a certain time there. So for example, the top 5% means that out of 100 people who came to my website, every one of them has an average time spent, right? So every one of them stays like 2 seconds or 2 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. And from out of 100 people, with this one, I can refer to the 5%, so the 5 people who have stayed the most, the longest, okay? And of course, as they were so interested, I can go the maximum, so 180 is the maximum. So let's call this, for example, visitors by time spent top 5% last 180 days. Okay. And the cool thing is we can now also create another one for the top 25%, for example, website visitors by time spent. So the top 5% for the long period and the top 25% for a shorter period. Because these are now like people who have just stayed 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, for example, but they did it still more than the other 75% of the people. And for example, working with this is a pretty cool idea. And later I'm going to show you how you can include all of this in your campaign structure. But first, let's set up the important ones. So the hot, warm and cold ones. Let's jump directly into my ads manager. And in order to set up this CBO campaign, I mean, we have several options. We could work with catalog sales, we can work with reach campaigns, but in general, I still see the best results when it comes to retargeting, also with normal conversion campaigns, optimizing on purchase. Now it's a little bit of a discussion, what should our daily budget be? I strongly recommend that you make this decision based on your overall budget. So if your overall budget is, for example, 100 euros per day, then you should not spend more than 20 or 30 euros here in retargeting. Okay, you should try to focus at least 70% of your budget for prospecting, so for new people. So this one really depends on your overall budget, but let's imagine that our overall budget is 300 euros. So 300 euros, and therefore like 20% would be 60 euros, which is nice. Or let's say even more, let's say we make 25%, which would be 75 euros. Now let's make things easy. Let's say we have 300 euros overall budget and we want to spend only 20% on our retargeting. So once again, 60. When it comes to bidding, of course, you want to stay with the lowest one here. No, cancel. So we want to stay with the normal one with lowest cost. Yes. Okay. And we can review and change, of course, the budget later on as well. As I said, in my CBO retargeting campaigns, I still want to focus on purchase, because of the order effect of the algorithm. And now here, when it comes to my audiences, I can simply select the hot ones that matter the most to me. So for example, I select here all the ones that I've already created previously. For example, the Instagram engaged and Facebook engaged one. So I have to take both of them, right? Facebook engaged and also the Instagram engaged. What else? Page view one. So people who have visited my website today. Then we have people who went even lower in the funnel, so they viewed a specific product, and people who added to the shopping cart in the last 7 days even. Okay, very important. We always want to exclude people who have already converted. So we exclude the purchasers because we're going to impact them in a specific campaign. Now, when it comes to locations, it depends a little bit on if you really deliver only in a specific country or you deliver worldwide. If you deliver worldwide, it's no problem to take in the retargeting audience all the different countries, because they will only re-impact people who have already engaged with your content in any kind of way. However, when you include the social media engagers, it could be that you have a lot of people from India that just visited your Facebook, Instagram page. So maybe, depending on where you are working and what is your main target, but you could say, for example, only Europe and United States. Depends completely on where you're operating, but that's what I typically do. And I also include, but I would leave it like this for now. And now, when it comes to the placements, to make our life easy, we can start with automatic placement conversion. We focus on 1-day click. And for now, for this specific moment, we won't set any limits, but we'll do it in a second. Okay. This, just to clarify, was our hot audience. So all of these. So hot retargeting, all placements, all. And now on ad level, of course you want to focus on a specific message that is tailored to the hot audience. Let's imagine that we have already created previously a very nice content here on our page, or we can simply select it from the Facebook or Instagram page and add a call to action at accelerator.com. Good. Okay. Of course, you want to optimize this messaging for the specific level of the funnel. So in this case, for the hot phase, for the testing purpose here, we're going to deactivate the campaign just to make sure that it won't spend anything in this test account here. But you get the idea, right? So you combine the different hot audiences into one specific ad set, which is inside the bigger CBO campaign. Okay. And now, what you could do, but let's make it step by step. The second thing that you want to do is you want to create the warm audiences and also the cold audiences. Like for this reason now, we can simply duplicate all of them easily, because we don't need the specific ads that are inside this ad set, because they are the ones tailored for the hot audience. And in the other ones we need, so hot audience, video A plus copy A, so on and so forth. And of course, in an ideal world, in this ad set for the warm audiences, we would have, once again, at least 4 different ads. Okay. So for the hot messaging, we would of course also want save the draft. We will of course also want to test different copies. We want to test different videos and A/B test all of that in a simultaneous manner. Okay, so within the hot retargeting one, we have these 4 options. Within the warm one, therefore I didn't set it up previously because we have to come up with specific ones anyways. Hot, now it's the warm retargeting. I have to draft, and this one is the cold one. Cold. You get the idea, right? So here, of course, you also want to have 4 different options with a specific warm communication. In the cold, you want to have, again, 4 with the specific cold communication. Of course, now we have to change here the audience setting, because these ones we actually want to exclude. So the fastest way is if you simply select it here, page view 1, hey, like this. Then it will take it automatically from the top and put it down below. You can also copy it, which is probably even faster, right? So, and you take all of them, you somehow clean it. You clean it from the top to the bottom. So you take all of them, put them down here. Of course, you have to select them properly to make sure that they're add to cart 7. And the last one we're missing is the Facebook engaged one. Which one is it? This one. Okay, perfect. Now what we want is we want to take all of these, excluding the other ones, to make sure that we only get the ones in the middle. Okay, so we said the engagers of 7 days, Instagram engagers, Facebook engagers, engaged 7. We said page view 7, view content 14, page view 7, view content 14, and add to cart, we even say 30 days. Add to cart 30 days. Okay, so far so good. That's the way we set up the warm audience, by simply including these and excluding the others. Of course, we want to exclude once again the purchasers. Very good. Now we could do the same with the cold audiences, simply taking these frames, excluding the warm audiences, and of course the purchasers. You get the idea. Now, you could either do it that way, or if you want to be a little bit more specific with your ad creatives, you can also take the structure that you have like this and duplicate it one more. So we duplicate all 3 of them. And what we could do, which is something that I like to do in many of my campaigns, to not just have everything in automated placement, but separate between the feed placements and the story placements, which also helps you when it comes to communicate specific retargeting communications. So story, and all is basically all minus story, right? And just to clarify, all minus story, all minus story, all minus story. And that's something you could do, and you could also work with dynamic content, with dynamic content optimization, especially in these especially in where you have several elements, because for example, when you work with stories, working with dynamic creative doesn't give you too many options. If you work with stories, it will only change the main element, so the video and the video and the URL and the link and the call to action. But where the dynamic content optimization really makes a lot of sense is when it comes to hot retargeting for all placements, because here it makes a big difference if you just show one and the same ad all over the time, all over again, or if you really show different ad elements from time to time. So as it's already published, we cannot activate it, as you've seen it there. So let's just duplicate it once again to make sure that we also are going to be able to apply that. So exactly, and let's call this one dynamic creatives. Okay, in the dynamic creatives, we can now activate it here. And then it allows you to upload multiple creative assets for one ad. That ad will generate using combination of the assets. If you continue, we'll keep for you to upload more assets and delete the others. Continue. Perfect. Good. And here, for example, if we now work with the different elements, adsaccelerator.com. Now this should, yeah, okay, of course not enough assets because there are no assets so far. But of course you can have here like text 1, headline 1, description 1, okay. And you want to select a specific image. Let's take, for example, whatever. If this would only load this one, just to getting started. And the cool thing about dynamic creatives is that you can upload several of these different ad elements. So not only several pictures, right? But you can also upload several texts, like for example, text 2, and also text free, whatever, right? And here you can see the different variations when you click there. And this will help you, especially when it comes to hot retargeting audiences, which tend to be very small audiences and the frequency tends to be very high. But working with these dynamic content optimization, with these dynamic creatives, will make sure that the ad fatigue, so the creativity fatigue, is not going to be so high, because people see not the same ad all over again, but they see different variations, they see different versions of your, for example, of here the different images, the different text, the different headlines. But what you have to have in mind when you create these kind of dynamic creatives is that you should not overdo it, because that's something that I see many times, that people then upload the maximum like 10 different texts, 10 different images, but they only spend 10 euros per day on this ad set. So that's not going to happen, because it's not going to be just an A/B test, but it's actually multivariate test between all of these things in simultaneous. So the options that you create are gonna be exponential, right? So the more options you have here are multiplied by these options. The thing that I want to recommend you is don't overdo it. Try to have a maximum of 10 variations. And what does it mean, a maximum of 10 variations? So basically 2 or 3 different images or videos and 2 or 3 different texts. And if you want to, you can also have 2 different headlines, but don't do more, okay? And if you want to prioritize, the most important is definitely the different videos or images, okay? That's the most important you want to test. Now, coming back to our campaign structure, we have this one, optimizer for conversions. If we work with the dynamic creatives, we can actually delete the other one. We won't need it anymore, because we just we don't want to have 100% overlaps within one specific campaign. But in this campaign for our CBO retargeting, let's call it CBO retargeting hot, warm, and cold. We have 6 different ad sets, therefore our budget of 60 euros is pretty good. And the only thing that we have to have in mind is that if we create these kind of audiences, if we structure it in that way into hot, warm, and cold, guess what's going to happen? What do you think? Which of these 3 audiences, which of these 3 ad sets will have the biggest reach? Of course, the cold one, because the majority of the people is going to be in the cold one. In the hot one, it's very small. And guess what the algorithm of Facebook is going to do? For out of these 60 euros, it's going to spend the majority of your budget into the cold audiences, which is definitely not what you want exactly, right? You want to make sure that especially the hot ones receive sufficient budget. Now, there are 2 ways to solve it. First, for the hot ones, you could define a minimum budget here, okay, at the spend limit, at the ad spend limit, like here, ad spend limit. So you could say minimum of 5 euros, for example, but the problem is we cannot guarantee this amount will be spent. So that's a little problem. They say we'll try to meet this minimum, but it's not guaranteed. The amount spent can be affected by many factors, including bid, audience size, budget, spend limits, and other ad sets in this campaign. Therefore, what I rather recommend is, instead of putting the minimums here in the hot retargeting, I rather recommend to put maximums in the cold one, which is a pretty good hint for you. Instead of putting the minimums in the hot ones, rather put the maximums in the cold ones, because that's for sure. We won't spend more than this amount, okay? And if you guarantee that it won't spend more than 10 euros here, 10 euros there, and maybe another 10 euros in the warm, another 10 euros there, you can 100% be sure that all the remaining budget is going to be divided into the hot ones, okay? And that's important when you work with CBO campaigns in retargeting, that you don't forget about the audience sizes, because of course the colder the audience, the broader, and therefore the easier it's going to be for the algorithm to spend your budget there. Therefore, work with these ad spend limits, and don't put the minimum ones on the hot ones, but rather put maximum ones on the cold and the warm ad sets. Now, in order to make sure that this CBO structure is 100% perfect, I told you that I also like to implement several other kind of campaigns. One of them is going one step higher. So not just hot, warm, and cold, but also what I typically call like low intent. So CBO retargeting low intent, or you can also call it super cold. Okay. And what you want to do here is you want to focus mainly on two kind of audiences. Okay. Let's call this page visitors by time spent. And you can, if you want to, you can keep separating between stories and the other ones. So basically the feeds, story, where is it? This one. Okay. And here, what we can do is we simply select both of them. We simply select what we have already created previously in the beginning of the video. So we select here people, visitors per time spent 25% in the last 30 days, and also the other one. Right. Let's make sure to exclude all of the other audiences that we already have in separated ad sets. Make sure that all of them, if you exclude them, they automatically will be deleted on top. So from the inclusion, they will directly be passed into the exclusion and will not show up on top anymore. Okay, great. And here you can now select visitors per time spent. So that's a pretty good one for the super low intent. So you just take page visitors, but you wouldn't take people who engaged in a certain area. Actually, what you want to do is to exclude the complete cold ones, because the cold ones are in a separate campaign. Okay, so instead of just including the Instagram engagers one, you want to exclude Instagram engaged 30, Instagram engaged 30, also the Facebook engaged 30. Then it's actually not even necessary to have the smaller ones, right? Because you have the bigger ones, and everyone who engaged in the last 30 days automatically also included in the last. Everyone who engaged in the last one, they automatically also included in the broader one, right? And we set here also the big ones. So add to cart 180, view content 180, add to cart 180, view content, right? View content, view content 180. The add to cart was here. Where is it? Okay, it's already there. So we can exclude all of these. And we said we're missing also, of course, page view itself. We cannot take right now because we need these guys. But at least people who haven't went one step lower. So view content add to cart, very important. This one here, in this specific one, you should not exclude because you want to re-impact exactly these people. And therefore, this one's already done. We can take it as it is now. We do not need all 6 ad sets here, so we can delete these 2. But the other ones, we're gonna rename into the engagers. Engagers 180. Save the draft. And what I like to do here on this level is I like to separate between the Facebook engagers and Instagram engagers. On the other level, it didn't matter so much to me, but when I'm so high in the funnel, so people who haven't even engaged with me in the last couple of weeks or months, but just people who engaged in some way on Instagram with me or some way on Facebook with me, what I like to do with them is just re-impact them on the specific platform. So I would go very broad. So I would take people who have engaged, Instagram engaged in the last 6 months. I would exclude the last 30 days because they're in the cold audience. So I would exclude Instagram engaged 30. I would of course exclude all the other big audiences that I already have. Actually, it's very easy if you just exclude. That was not ideal. If you just exclude page views, page view from the last 180 days, you can make sure that, like, if you exclude these guys, you exclude all the other ones as well, like the engages not. But if you exclude page view 180, all of the page views, view content, and add to carts, and also purchasers are going to be excluded. And in this case, the only thing that's missing is Instagram engaged 30. This way, we're making sure that we only impact people that have engaged with our Instagram profile in the last 6 months, but not in the last month, and have never visited our website. And very important, and to make sure that this audience works for you, you only want to impact them on Instagram. So you want to make sure you unselect all the others, you unselect all the Facebook placements. And you only, so not Facebook stories, not Messenger stories, not Instagram, but just not InStream, but just Instagram stories and Instagram feed, for example, Instagram feed. And that's a pretty cool way to re-engage all of these people who have already engaged with your Instagram profile in the past. And the same you could have to, of course, do with Facebook. You basically simply unselect Instagram feed and Instagram stories. That's much faster. And now you only re-impact people who have engaged with the Facebook profile. I mean, you could go up to 365 days, but I didn't see great results with that. I got the best results with like half a year maximum, okay? Basically doing exactly the same that we did with the Instagram profile, but now just focusing on the Facebook engagers, Facebook engaged last 30 days. Once again, we exclude page view 180 days, and therefore we can easily re-impact only people who have engaged with a Facebook profile in the last 6 months, but not in the last month, and never visited our website. And we do this only on Facebook, not on the other placements. And moreover, besides all of that, of course, we should never forget about our campaign for the up and cross-sell. So for people who have already purchased, for these guys, I typically set up an own one that I call upsell, right? You don't need a lot of budget. You can actually do this one with a reach campaign if you want. With a reach campaign, because everyone who purchased can be interesting for you. You don't need so many ad sets here. I typically separate between the upsell from purchase 180, so people that I take from my pixel, and another upsell that I take from my customer list, from customer file, for example, last 2 years. And of course, I communicate specific messages to them, and not the same that you communicate on retargeting. And all of this is very nice. And there's one little advanced hint that I wanted to share with you, because if you work a lot with breakdowns for placements, what I typically see is that it's called breakdown dilemma or breakdown effect, that one of the placement that turns out to perform very well in retargeting is Facebook desktop right column, or it used to be called desktop right hand side. And this placement typically has a very high ROAS, a very high return on ad spend when it comes to retargeting. However, the budget that's going to be spent there is very low. So in order to make sure that you force the algorithm to spend more there, what you could do is you could duplicate, for example, the hot and warm audiences, probably not the cold because it's so broad already, and also definitely not the super low intent, but just the hot and warm ones. I see very, very good results when it comes to desktop right column, and I create a specific campaign for them to make sure that it really spends my budget there as well. Okay, so what I do is in this new campaign, I of course delete the cold ones because I don't need them. And in the remaining ones, so of course I also don't need the story formats here. So let's get rid of these two as well. Stories. But I want to make sure that hot and warm, both of these guys are going to be impacted directly on Facebook desktop right column. To ensure that, it's very easy. Of course, you simply select the right placement. You simply Don't take all of them. View and edit. Hey. Actions, remove. We'll switch. Let's make that easy. Let's do this as a first step. Okay. Let's do it one by one. It's gonna be easier. So here, of course, what you want to do is you simply want to unselect all the others, and you want to leave selected only Facebook right column, and you get rid of all the others. And the cool thing is, if you are now worried about an overlaps, if you're now worried about, hey, but I'm reimpacting the same people with two different campaigns, right? Because the hot and the warm audiences are going to be impacted with two different campaigns. Well, first of all, there is a detuping effect. So detuping basically means that before entering the auction, you have an internal decision. So if the algorithm previously already decides which of the two ones is going to perform better, which is going to bring better results, and only this one is going to enter the auction. But besides the detuping effect, you also don't have to worry about anything, because these audiences, these ad sets, are not spending more on Facebook desktop right column because they deliver better according to the algorithm, they deliver better on the other placements. So they're not spending sufficient enough on the right column. They're spending like just a couple of cents, a couple of euros there. So this one is not going to fight so much against the other one, because that one's going to spend mainly on the feeds, on story formats, but not so much on right column. Therefore, this one is just an addition. It's not substituting, it's not fighting against the other one, it's just an addition, and this addition will bring you very high ROAS. So within all of these campaigns, typically that's the one where I see one of the highest ROASes, okay? Now, to sum up, how should we structure our retargeting when it comes to CBO campaigns? Well, we still want to maintain our communication for hot, warm, and cold retargeting and communicate different messages on each step of the funnel. And the retargeting funnel, we want to have a proper campaign for up and cross-sell, where we impact not only people from our pixel, so the last 180 days, but also from our customer file. And on top of that, I've also shown you that there is another way that's called low intent or super cold audience. Here, we either impact people that have engaged with our page in the best 5% in the last 180 days, or the best 25% in the last 30 days, and you can combine them in one ad set. And moreover, I've also shown you that I like to impact people who have engaged with my Instagram profile, but only on Instagram placements, so Instagram feed and Instagram stories, and the same with Facebook, excluding the Instagram placements. And last but not least, I've also shown you a little advanced hack that you want to duplicate your entire retargeting structure for hot and warm audiences, in order to make sure that you have one specific campaign, especially one specific ad set, focusing mainly on desktop right column, in order to maximize the return. And moreover, you maximize the investment that you can get on this highly profitable placement. Now, with all of this said, I'm sure that your CBO retargeting campaigns are going to be highly profitable, and I'm very excited to welcome you in the next video. All the best. If you like what you have just seen and you want to learn more about advanced Facebook and Instagram ads, then start following us on all of these different channels, on all of these different platforms. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you've really liked this specific video, please just drop us a like and a comment below the video, and looking forward to seeing you in the next ones.